three metals in deficit in 2023 and will remain so in 2024. What is causing this disconnect?
Demand has been fairly robust and strong. We've seen vehicle numbers increase, but in the background, we actually have quite a bit of above ground stock.
It's been widely reported that the growth in electrification seems to be slowing and that hybrids are being favored. What's that mean for PGMs?
We saw in 2020, battery electrification was forecasted to kind of grow maybe 1, 2, 3%. What happened is you saw this skyrocket, 76% increase in battery electrification. But now that market is somewhat saturated, this whole kind of transition towards AI, because there's a huge amount of processing in hard disk drive requirements, platinum ruthenium. So that bodes well for PGMs going forward.
The solution to high prices is high
prices.
Well, welcome to the 48th Annual IPMI Conference here in Orlando, Florida, and today's guest is Wilma Swarts of Metals Focus. So thank you very much for your time. I know you're very busy with presentations and panel discussions. So today I thought I would talk about Metal Focus's flagship, and I have it here. I'll hold it up to the camera. But I have some questions written down for you, Wilma. In your latest flagship PGM Focus report, Metals Focus sees all three metals in deficit in 2023 and will remain so in 2024. Yet palladium and rhodium prices declined in 2023, 35%, and I believe it was 57%. And while platinum and rhodium is trading higher than start of this year, it's a +4 and a +7 as of today. It might be a little bit lower as far as trading goes. But palladium is down further 16%. So my first question for you is, what is causing this disconnect?
Right. So firstly, thank you very much for having me. It's very exciting to be part of this prestigious podcast. And of course, to be here at the conference and seeing everybody. If we just think about the markets, so historically, we've always spoken about demand and annual demand and what that looks like, and supply and annual supply and what that looks like. So we know that we're encountering all these challenges around the secondary supply market, and even on the primary supply market, supply is a bit of a challenge. So the demand has been fairly robust and strong. We've seen vehicle numbers increase, and that's given you this deficit market that we're in. But in the background, we actually have quite a bit of above ground stock. Especially on
surplus, huh?
That's right. So you've got stock, you've got liquidity in the market. So that's weighing on the prices. Add to that for palladium and rhodium specifically. Rhodium maybe not much because the price has actually been quite stable. But for palladium specifically, if we think about the expectations around the electrification, the investors or the punters are taking a forward look on this. And this is why we're seeing this, kind of net shorts, historically high and record high net shorts, because the investors are saying they're betting for battery electrification and potentially against palladium. Palladium is so dependent on the automotive industry. So a decline in the automotive markets going forward is influencing the price, essentially. Yeah. And so that's really
Palladium
why we see
isn't required in a battery electric vehicle.
Sadly not. I know that there is some novel technology that's looking at that, and some of the call to action that I'm hearing at the conference is to look more closely at the alternate. Palladium is an amazing metal, as all these metals are, but there must be some call to action. There is not a substantial replacement demand segment for palladium outside of automotive catalysts.
Palladium, I remember back early in my career, one of the main uses of palladium was simply alloy in the manufacture of dental products.
Correct.
And then they found the wonderful use of its catalytic abilities in cleaning up the air pollution from ICE engines. And now we're trying to get away from the ICE engines somewhat.
Yeah.
What was the price of that palladium back then?
Oh, wow. You really want me to go back
yeah,
that far?
I want to hear this.
I mean, I think that we were consuming palladium for manufacturing purposes, and we were buying 100-ounce Russian ingot stamped with a hammer and sickle. About $75 an ounce is about what it was back in the day when I first began my career.
Things
have changed
big
a
bucks,
bit.
75 a day.
75. Well, but what would that be in real terms? What would that be in money today?
Yeah, 40 years later,
So,
yeah.
So compound interest.
Yeah, about where the market is today.
About where it is today, yes.
But in reality, even if we see 500, 650 palladium, I think it's still a good price.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a very good argument, because essentially, even if I go back, my days when I was selling the metals, when I was working in the mines, to get palladium, $500, that's really not a bad price. I think platinum is disappointing, because I used to sell my platinum at a much higher price in the old days.
Oh, yeah.
Rhodium, I mean, I would have loved to get $4,750 for rhodium. Because
Right.
What was it trading for then?
when I was selling it, 650.
Yeah.
The rhodium as well?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So even where we're at today, let's just call it 4,000 an ounce. I mean, that's not too bad, but from years past, everybody thinks, the sky is falling. Right?
We have short memories, and hope springs eternal as human beings. They want to see it back at 30,000. It could reach 30,000. I think people think that it can reach 30,000 again. Unless we find an alternative. So, as we talk about palladium being so dependent on the automotive sector, add a little bit of interest to that, and rhodium is actually even more dependent on the automotive industry.
Yeah, absolutely. We have another question here. It's been widely reported that the growth in electrification seems to be slowing, and that hybrids are being favored as it offers the green credentials, but the internal combustion engine peace of mind in terms of range and use. So what's that mean for PGMs?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is interesting. We certainly did see, I think forecasters, and I'm one of those, so, we're really, we have 2020 vision. Hindsight is 2020 vision, So what we saw in 2020, or just when COVID happened, battery electrification was forecasted to kind of grow maybe 1%, 2%, 3%, just so gradually increase. And actually what happened is you saw this skyrocket, it's 76% increase in battery electrification. And then, the forecast is kind of like, okay, well, if this is the rate of or the trajectory, we have to revise our forecasts up. And so that happened. And then suddenly there's this stalling, because I think that in reality what has happened is the battery electric vehicles are a lot more expensive. You had a great uptake. And even during this really turbulent time from a monetary perspective, the people in the wealthier echelons, they've not felt the impact of higher interest rates and inflation as much. So they were able to afford and buy these cars. So we saw this massive increase in the luxury level of battery electrification.
Early on. Early adopters.
And so you had that, but now that market is somewhat saturated, but the price point of a BEV is still substantially higher than an internal combustion engine, And I think that given where we are from a macroeconomic standpoint, the affordability is an issue. And so I think that's really why we're not seeing that adoption. Add to that, there's still some range anxiety out there, etc. So what we've seen is a little bit of a rollback. Now, every million cars of battery electric vehicles, fewer battery electric vehicles that you build, if that's replaced by either a hybrid or an internal combustion engine car, that gives around just close to 200,000 ounces of additional platinum group metals requirements, So that's a very positive indicator. I still think, though, that, we are seeing an increase in battery electrification. It will continue to grow. It's not growing at 70%. It's growing at maybe 25%, and it'll grow even, at maybe 12, 15%. But it'll be growing off a much higher base. I mean, this year, you're going to have 14 million battery electric vehicles being produced. So of the 92 vehicles being produced, there's a higher number of battery electric vehicles being produced. But the sales and the reticence towards sales and the second-hand vehicle prices of battery electric cars have put a bit of a dampener on that, and it's given hybrids a new lease in life. And, that is a positive.
Something we
Absolutely.
talked about in the past.
Oh, always, yeah.
Yeah.
Because we always say, what does hybrid vehicles need? Right?
Precious metal.
Precious metal.
They do, and sometimes more than a normal
the loadings
internal
are higher.
combustion.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Not in all. I mean, in our flagship report, we do have a little bit of a focus box on that they're not all the same. It's a little bit like, kind of, we glibly make the statement, and it is for most part true that hybrids actually have higher loadings. But you do have some that have a lower loading, in some instances where it's a range extender. You don't have an
lower
internal
loading.
combustion engine there.
Right.
You have a generator. You have a generator charging the battery.
Right.
And a generator operates at kind of different levels. Where is PGM's most effective, and in a cold start environment, that's its job, right? So whereas a generator generally runs at a constant temperature, so your loadings are actually slightly less there. But I have to say, I mean, mild hybrids, full hybrids, and plug-in hybrids, those are, in any event, the higher category, higher numbers. We're looking at 22 million of those being built this year. They have more platinum.
So we're not really calling for the death of the internal combustion engine anytime soon, are we?
No. Not for the next 10 years.
The last 3 or 4 years, we've been hearing that it would be over by 2050, completely
by
done.
2050?
Yeah, by completely done.
I would honestly say my crystal ball doesn't go
25
that
years
far.
out.
I don't know. I mean, it could. It could. I wouldn't hang my hat on the possibility, And when I say it could, I do think that you'll have to have some fuel cell vehicles in there. I don't think that you'll have complete adoption, and battery electrification will solve every mobility solution. I don't think so.
Yeah, I just don't know that we have enough electricity and enough distribution and enough minerals to meet the demand for a fully electric vehicle fleet.
No, that's a fair comment, but I feel safer to say next 10 years, definitely not.
Yeah.
Next 20 years, even maybe, I mean, I think the internal combustion engine will be around. I think we've got to think pragmatically about it. Urban mining will be a lot stronger than primary mining.
Yeah.
And I do think that requires the mines to think differently about their future trajectory.
That's a great point. Mm-hmm. Okay, one next question here for you. The controversy of AI and the implications is not limited to the way we work, consume, generate, and assess information, but also to the consumption of raw materials to power the processing requirements. What are the implications for PGMs?
Yeah, I mean, actually, there's definitely it's not a silver lining. There's a platinum ruthenium lining, essentially, for this whole kind of transition towards AI, because there's a huge amount of processing requirements. It's even have some palladium implication, the type of chip that you need is a different type of chip, the speed, the rate, and storage. The other thing is really storage. And while, we've seen and we've heard most probably that solid state drives are slowly but surely encroaching on hard disk drives. In data centers, the hard disk drive is still incredibly important. And this processing capacity and the storage, with these large language models and the amount of information that it's processing and storing, you are going to see a substantial increase in
Ruthenium?
Well, in hard disk drive requirements, and
Right.
what your hard disk drive, requires is platinum ruthenium.
Platinum ruthenium,
So that bodes well for PGMs going
Right.
forward. So they'll
Platinum
go.
has legs.
There we go. Well, so I think if you ask me which metal I'm most optimistic about, it is iridium, platinum, and iridium, and the minor metals. Really, I think rhodium and palladium seem to be the ugly ducklings at the moment, and they need a little bit of TLC.
They need some love.
They need some love, but also, there's I can't remember who said this, but there's no better solution to low prices than low prices. A lower price for palladium will push it into an adoption zone. When it's at $3,600, everybody's trying to thrift it out. When it's at $500,
I think you're re-quoting Rick Rule, where he said the solution to high prices is high prices.
Well, I've made it my own then.
But that's we've said that before. We've used it in the opposite as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, okay. So platinum is used in jewelry.
Yeah.
Well, what can you speak to that? There's a significant demand for platinum jewelry, isn't there?
Well, it has declined over time, but I think that the reality, so I was talking about which metal I'm really excited about and why. Platinum has this diverse applications, right? So you've got more than 30% of platinum demand is actually in jewelry, and
It's a big number.
Yeah, well, so it's kind of dismissed here at the IPMI conference because it's very technically
We don't talk about
minded.
platinum jewelry here.
Yeah. You generally don't talk about
You have to
platinum
go to
jewelry.
Italy. Isn't that the next
That's
upcoming
right.
event
You need
in
to go to
Italy?
Italy to talk about jewelry, but it is important. And there's been this transition which I think people have missed a little bit. In 2010, it was a story about China. So in my presentation at the conference, I have this slide that says from Pac-Man to Trivial Pursuit. So if you look at the pie chart, it looked like a Pac-Man. China looked like a Pac-Man in terms of representation. 65% of platinum jewelry was consumed in China, and now it's a lovely Trivial Pursuit board with a broad allocation. We've got India coming up. We've seen improvement in North America. We've seen, the European market is quite sticky. So it consumes about 2 million ounces of platinum every year. That's not an insignificant amount. So think about the numbers here. You've got 3.2 or 3.3 million ounces being used in automotive, which is the largest one, and 2 million in jewelry, and around about 2.2 million in industrial. So it's a nice mix for platinum. But that jewelry component is an important component. And the fact that it is, it's moved from China. China is a recycle market. So, they self-purchase.
I was just going to bring that up, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And they sell again. This year I like this little this little kind of pendant, and I'm going to sell it back, and I might buy a lighter piece.
Right.
So it becomes a supply as well.
That's right.
In the US, in Europe, you have a very different approach to jewelry. I'm keeping my platinum pendant because my grandchild and my grandchild's grandchild will be able to say that I inherited this piece of platinum.
Legacy jewelry.
So legacy is a lot more important and so it's more sticky. So it doesn't come back to market as much as
That's very true.
That's a good point.
It's a very good aspect, even on palladium. So what happened when palladium went to the prices that it did, we saw a switch in white gold away from palladium, because the alloy used to be gold and palladium. And we saw a switch away from palladium to platinum. And it was difficult because platinum is a really difficult metal to work with in jewelry. Palladium is easier to work with. So we saw the switch away from palladium to platinum because of the price. But now with the prices switching, you're seeing that there will be a move back to white gold will be palladium rich again going forward. And in addition to that, the luxury white gold market, insensitive to price. So they'll stick to whatever metal they like, and that is it's palladium. So we actually see some palladium, unfortunately not in the 2 million, nothing to replace
not close,
the 8 million ounces that we are, looking to find a new home for.
Well, I would think that fuel cells should take a few ounces of platinum.
It will. I mean, I think fuel cells had a bit of a hiccup, hasn't it? I think it's quite dependent on policy formulation. And more than 50% of the world's population is at the polls this year. So, you've got politicians having to think about what will resonate, what will get them into office. And the question is, will a hydrogen strategy get them into office? Will it detract or add to their positioning? And I suppose that's really what's happened with hydrogen and the fuel cell market. It's definitely going to happen. The rate of adoption, and I won't be surprised that we see the same thing that happened in battery electrification. It was like kind of meandering along, and then suddenly went up, and then
big spike.
It had a big spike, yeah. So don't be surprised if fuel cells and hydrogen economy goes in the same direction, and that's good platinum, that's good ruthenium, that's good iridium. It could be good palladium, depends on, if you do green hydrogen, you don't need palladium. But if you get hydrogen from any other source, you need to purify it because otherwise it poisons the fuel cell, right? And palladium is a great purifier, so.
When I entered the industry, right about the time we hit a 10-year bear market in the gold, and it was a pretty uneventful decade. When I look at the last 10 years in the white metals, it's been pretty exciting.
Every second day there's a black swan.
Every day there's something else in the white metals. We're talking about iridium today. Oh, tomorrow it's palladium. There's no demand. It's all over the place.
Yeah. It keeps us busy.
Yeah.
Never a dull moment, right?
Absolutely.
Well, the last thing that we would like you to speak about is the women of the IPMI and the WI PGMs.
Women in PGMs.
Women in PGMs. If you can maybe speak to that.
Yeah, no, I'm very excited about it. I'm really, really excited about the fact that the IPMI has agreed to sponsor our second program, our second mentor program. So Women in PGM started in 2019, and we very quickly realized we're all experts at platinum group metals, but we're not necessarily good at mentoring. So we then identified a company to help us put together a program, and it's the first cross-industry program that we introduced as Women in PGMs. And it worked incredibly well. I remember when I launched it at the winter conference last year, and I would have been happy if we got 10 people to sign up, and we got 42 people to sign up.
Yeah.
And so the IPMI was really excited about it, and they've come on board. And so we're launching a second mentor program this year. And really, the focus is about attracting and developing young female talent. And because the industry has amazing experts, female experts with experience in the industry, but not that many, we're actually inviting men to also join as mentors. So we have women as mentees, and we've got all genders as mentors.
Interesting.
And we're hoping to this year full 50. So it's we've just launched it yesterday. Oh no, 2 days ago. We launched it on Sunday, and it will open for application after this event. And we start the program early September. So we'll do the matching. We use an external company to do the matching. They're experts at this. So we would encourage lots of men and women to sign up as mentors. And we would love to encourage young talent. We would want to attract more women to the industry. As you were saying, the PGM industry there's never a dull moment.
No, it's exciting.
It's exciting.
Yes.
And we'd love to see new young talent join the industry and grow, and we'd love to help grow them.
Well, that's fantastic. My experience early in my career was I was mentored by an old timer, came out of Anglo Platinum. And we spent over a decade together, and it was a mentoring, mano a mano, and it was a wonderful experience. I grew tremendously. I learned a lot. So I see what you guys are doing, and I understand where it's going, and the benefit.
Excellent.
There's going to be a lot of growth.
That's what we want. What an amazing legacy to be able to leave, right? Is that we've introduced this, we've formalized it somewhat, because a lot of people don't think that they have what it takes to be a mentor. But I think we underestimate sometimes the extent of our knowledge and just our perspective.
You're right.
And how valuable it is, for a young person to just hear it in a safe space. Mm-hmm. So, company mentor programs are fantastic, but sometimes it's quite nice to be able to, in a safe space, take your challenges, your thinking to somebody who has experience, who has knowledge, who doesn't recognize that they do have that, but who sits and listens and can just give you a different perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So download on
exactly
somebody new in the industry.
Exactly.
How would they get in touch with you if somebody was interested in this program, being a mentor?
So we distributed the QR code, but there is a website, Women in PGMs, and if you click on Women in PGMs, there is I'm interested in becoming a mentee, or I'm interested in becoming a mentor button, and you can click and you can sign up and apply for it.
Perfect. Well, thank you for sharing that information, and we really appreciate your time today. So thank you,
Wilma.
Thank you. Thank you for all the questions and the interest, and for what you do. I watch every podcast.
Oh, wow. That's great.
Thank you.
Thank you.